Hello and welcome to July 18th, 2022. My name is Kurt and this is my daily Good Life meditation video. This is something I do each and every morning shortly after waking up to remember my life objectives and principles, to recount them, to think about them, to refine them, improve them, and to see how I did applying those to the last 24 hours and to plan for the next 24 hours. First, last night and yesterday. Slept pretty good. When I went to bed a little late, slept pretty good up until the last hour. Then I was up, and I was thinking about what I was going to do with my niece and nephew. So fortunately, I wasn't thinking about work, but they're going to come visit this week at the end of the week, and I was thinking about the time I was going to spend with them. Kind of a new thing, you know. They're 9 and 11, and 9-year-old girl, 11-year-old boy. I'm a little out of practice spending time with kids, so but I think I'm up to the task. So I might have Friday on my own with them, and Saturday with the family. I have things in mind. It's kind of fun just thinking about them. It was nice not being up thinking about work for a change. Although I will confess, I did think a little bit about work, worried about work. But then I just remembered my examination of that first image from the James Webb Deep Space Telescope, revealing its version of the what was it called? The Hubble's ultra deep, ultra wide, or something like that. That Hubble's long stare at that one blank space in space, that dark spot that revealed, all those galaxies. And then the James Webb Space Telescope did the same thing, but instead of staring for weeks, it stared for hours, and it came up with something even more penetrating. Imagine what it can do in weeks if it can, when given that chance. But anyway, I just was thinking about all those galaxies, billions and billions of habitable, potentially habitable planets. Habitable with air quotes. Take a lot of, fine tuning to find the right place. But just all the potential for life, all the potential for circumstance and activity and things going on out there. A lot. Anyway, yesterday was a good day. Spent the day with my wife. We didn't have our chores were all done. Our shopping was all done, except we need to make one quick trip to the supermarket. So we got up. I spent the day doing good deal of reading, working on my website, and then we went to Riverside and had lunch at a Vietnamese place I like. I introduced it to my wife. She liked it too. Recommended by a Vietnamese friend. Very good place. Then we went over and visited the aforementioned niece and nephew and my brother. Had a nice time with them. That's where this whole idea of having them come to stay with us came about. Then we came home, and Yumiko and I had a nice evening, respective evening separate. She was downstairs watching videos, and I was up here again working on the website. And then I went to bed and had a nice sleep. It's a good day. Okay, let's do the good life. First, a sip. When I did work on the Discord, when I moved the Discord server from a channel-based model to a thread-based model. So instead of having channels for topics, we'll have threads. Threads are better because they only stick around. They become archived after they're not used for a while. They can be dug up, I think. But so there's 2 channels, one for voice, one for text. And if people create text activity, they can thread it and then have separate topics going on. I like that. Okay, let's get started. The first 7 objectives. These are as follows. My first objective is to be always ready to die, to have my personal affairs and my life relationships and my life's work all in an order of readiness for my passing. And I believe that they are. 2 is to make good and effective use of my time so I'm not frittering my life away, twiddling my thumbs through the years, but doing worthwhile activities like working or spending time with my family, getting together with my niece and nephew, working on my various projects, being a good citizen and human being, a good dog, friend to my dogs, caretaker to my dogs. Next is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's these 7 objectives and 30 principles. And I do that through this very exercise of every day waking up and getting, making my good life video. Next is to cultivate good emotional reactions, to become the kind of man who reacts well to the circumstances around me. In hindsight, I was thinking about that incident on, was it Friday or Saturday? Saturday, with the dogs, the dog attack. I handled that well. I didn't fly off the handle. I kept my balance and composure the whole time, except when I was swinging the dog through the air with one arm and kicking at the big dog with my foot. I guess I was, but I was still, my mind was balanced. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Grace under fire, maybe. Next is the next objective, that is to perform good actions, just to do good little things and medium and big things if I can throughout the day. The second to last objective is to perform good actions. Sorry, I just said that one. To recognize my true limits and my true opportunities, so that I'm being genuine in my energies, the use of my energies towards things that are reasonable and achievable, and not so much towards the things that are out of my scope, out of my hand. And then lastly, my final objective is to do just one thing at a time, and to do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully, to never multitask. Now, my 30 principles. These are the guidelines that I use to help me to achieve my objectives. Number 1 is the principle of war. To always be fighting against everything that I think is true, anything that is proposed to me as true, so that I'm only onboarding things that have suffered their due diligence. 2, and by the way, just back up a second. If I do that well, then that helps me to avoid a later principle that I call sin and damnation, which is largely abiding things that are untrue or being untrue. And if I execute this war well, then I can avoid that sin. It's the first time ever I've connected those two. See it now. And with that third objective, to develop and maintain good and sound life principles, that's how this exercise helps. It helps me to uncover those connections and to refine things. I'll remember that now. Next, the number 2 principle is called the principle of reason, and it has 3 sub-principles, which are honesty, objectivity, and doubt, which are the attitude and perspective and frame of mind that I keep as I attempt to reason my way through life. Honesty, because I want to be true. Objectivity, because I want to see things in as clear a light as I can. And doubt, because I enlist fierce skepticism as my tool to protect myself from grasping at the things that I want and rejecting the things that I'm afraid of. Excuse me. The next principle and the one after that are kind of related. The third principle is the homunculus, and the fourth principle is called the Anchorhold. Here's what they are and how they relate. The homunculus is a funny word that simply suggests like a little man trapped within you. I don't think we have a soul, you or me or anyone, and as a result, but I do think, as a result, I don't think that there's anything in us that survives our death. But we do have clearly a consciousness. And that is the homunculus, the little person that feels like it's right behind your forehead, right? Between your ears, looking out your eyes, running the gears up there. That's the principle of homunculus, a reminder that I don't have a soul, neither do you, but we do have a consciousness. That's what we're using to apprehend each other right now. Well, I'm not apprehending you. I know you're out there, maybe. At least some small number of you. I think you get the idea. The Anchorhold, though, suggests that is a further reminder that the homunculus is trapped, desperately trapped within the head. I like to liken this to a man who's stuck on a rock sticking out of the sea, a little sea stack, where the waves are churning and the water is cold and deep and beasts and scary and dangerous. That's what it's like, this consciousness, this homunculus trapped in our heads. We know it's temporary, we know it's mortal and subject to the health of our body and the well-being of our body. And it's a scary thing. And the tide rises and it gets close and it's scary, and the tide recedes and we feel a little bit better, just like our mood fluctuates throughout the day and throughout the seasons of life. Okay, next is, the next principle is the home of good and evil. Right and wrong, good and evil reside in here. They're opinions. They don't exist out there. I mean, sure, you might have 10 commandments written in a book, but those aren't real other than what we create of them in our minds. And Hubble deep field, that James Webb image I was telling you about of the stars, I didn't see any good or evil out there either. So it's up to us to ascertain and decide and to enforce what constitutes right and wrong, good and evil, first upon ourselves, and then to work to enact just laws and regulations. It's a big duty. Sometimes it feels like a big duty. All right, next is purpose, the next principle. I have 3 purpi. These are: 1, to be a good husband and father. 2, and the husband part is really to facilitate being the good father. 2, to be a virtuous human being, where virtue is simply the effort to improve the well-being of others, particularly thinking others. Includes animals too, plants even. 3, but I don't think they think so much. I don't know. 3 is the sharing of my story and my creed in my book, Going Alone. Okay, next is the next objective, or principle, that is the principle of war. Atomic principle. Kind of stumbled there. The atomic principle suggests that all the universe is made of, it's not a suggestion, it's a fact, of atoms and molecules, and so too you and I. It's a reminder that you and I are too. And we're only tenuously held together for a brief time, and soon going to fall apart. It's good to remember that. Soon to pieces, you and me. Dissolution awaits. Very soon. Okay, next is the principle of nature. Everything in the universe has some particular nature, including every one, and it's good to identify what that nature is and to remember it so that we can, you don't have to remember the nature of Pluto, but it's good to remember the nature of my dog here. And he's getting older and a little bit cantankerous. So when I take him out, I can remember that. You get the idea. If we know the nature of things, then we can be better prepared for their behavior and inertia. After nature comes the principle of did I forget? After nature comes, is it the pirate ride? Maybe. The pirate ride suggests that free will is an illusion. It doesn't exist. I know. Sure does feel like it exists, but I don't think it does. And as such, we're kind of just reaction engines moving along. Yeah, Pirate Ride is the next one. See, they're all listed in the book. There's Pirate Ride right there after the Principle of Nature. So it's funny. You'd think after all these years of telling myself that free will is an illusion, that I'd feel at liberty to enjoy life more, but I still feel responsible. And I like that. It's good. You know, I don't want to not feel responsible. I don't want to go through life all cavalier. Oh, nothing matters. It's nothing my fault. I'm not free. I don't want to live that way. But I do want to be aware that that seems to be the case. I can't prove it. It's just kind of a suspicion that I hold on faith. Yeah, I do sin. Okay. After that comes the principle of maturity, which has two sub-principles, wisdom and fortitude. We are mature when we wisely remember our past successes and failures and plan to do better in the future. Next comes the social principle. We are social animals, you and me and everyone. We need each other. It's good to be with one another. After the social principle comes public speaking, a reminder to be very careful in my communications, to use just the right words, and few words and deliberate words and carefully chosen words, both in written and spoken, and also to never ever gossip, because gossip leads to sin, which leads to damnation in the here and now. Next comes, after public speaking comes temperance, a suggestion to be very careful about our consumption of all things, largely our time, how much we work and how much we play, how much we eat also, how much we recreate, sleep, everything, just in careful measure. After temperance comes, there's three sub-principles, by the way: suffering, simplicity, and apathy. These are the sub-principles of temperance. Suffering, because we suffer when we deny ourselves what we want. Like I'm hungry, you can hear my stomach maybe. I'm suffering a little bit because I'm hungry, because I skipped breakfast. And then simplicity, because a simple life is a temperate life. And then apathy, where we can recognize what is outside of our scope of control and not be flustered or put off by that, but to simply see it as such, accept it as such. Okay, after temperance comes the horror show, the idea and the reminder, the fact that life is a pretty scary place. Lots of bad things happening to a lot of people. Terrible things, actually. And it's coming for each of us. It may be with us for a while, or it may be very brief, but it's coming for us. Maybe it's already here for some of us. Okay, after the horror show comes that which must be borne. That's the next principle. That which must be borne. Borne with an E, carried. And what we have to carry, is the fact of the responsibilities that we've onboarded. Largely the times that we've said yes and I do, and the children that we've brought into the world. We have to carry them, and we have to see our responsibilities through in a mature and adult manner. We also have to onboard the fact of the horror show, and not hide away. Do our best with it. Okay, after that which must be born comes, the Feast of Offal. The Feast of Offal. Offal is the waste and byproduct of butchery. You know, all the stuff that you can't sell at the butcher's counter, so you grind it and squeeze it into sausages and sell it that way. Offal is also, in this use, my use here, is the waste and byproduct of our intemperate living beyond our abilities and beyond the scope of our control, outside of the pale of our apathy. We get hurt, and we want to share that hurt and throw that hurt out onto the world, and largely to maybe get a little relief but also just to punish. I try not to do those things. I used to, about way back, my 20 plus years ago. I don't do it anymore. It hurts other people, and it hurts ourselves, and it doesn't solve the problem. It's just like a release valve, releasing steam. But we're releasing that steam right into the faces of our loved ones when we do the feast. Because typically the Feast of Offal is something we do in public. The Japanese have a way of doing this thing, kind of a more private manner. They'll go to the top of a mountain and shout into the wind. The wind buries the energy and the upset. That's a good way to handle it. Not enough windy ridges around me. But fortunately, I don't need to do it so much anymore. I found other ways, mainly by, using apathy and temperance and maturity, the principle of maturity, and other things to keep myself within scope. But I still, my difficulty is my sleepless mornings, waking up early and can't go back to sleep. It's a lot better than before. It's a lot better in terms of the way I used to live 20 years ago, which was to bottle it up and explode. That's the feast. The feast is when you explode and all this, you vomit out all your pain to the world, particularly to your loved ones, and stain and contaminate them and make them ill in the process. That's the Feast of Offal. I try not to do that anymore. And when other people are doing it, I try not to swallow, keep my mouth shut, so I don't get any in me. I'll have to wipe it off, but that's better than getting sick from it. And then give them a tissue and a shoulder to cry on. Okay, after the Feast of Offal comes distraction. We spend our whole lives distracting ourselves from the emptiness of the universe, which I call the great indifference. Those are two principles in a row right there. Bam, bam. Next comes the best seat in the house, to try to be all right with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing right here, right now, right who. Then the Path of Wildness, which is a way to branch off from a current life path into a new life path. It's an off-ramp and a transition. It starts with recognizing that a change is needed, collecting facts ahead of that change to make an informed decision, and then making that decision. And if necessary, using our gut feeling to help guide us and prompt us along the way. Recognizing that those gut feelings and even the informed decisions may be wrong and may lead us off the edge of a cliff, so to speak. It's the welcome risk. Okay, the Path of Wildness. Next comes the risk of avoiding risk. Life has the surface level risks and the deep risk. The surface level risks are the risk of not attending to education, career, home, family. In this order, you could home or family, home and family, family or home, whatever you want, and then security. The deep risk is spending time to develop and find oneself in that order. Okay, next comes sin and damnation. There are 7 sins in my worldview. These relate to being untrue, believing things that are possibly untrue, and being a gossip. Particularly enumerated, they are 7. It is falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, and gossip. The consequence of executing any of those is damnation in the here and now. No damnation to follow, I think. The next principle is called complete oblivion. Remember the principle of the atomic principle? The suggestion that we're just atoms, and also the homunculus and the Anchorhold. We're stuck. We don't have a soul, but we're stuck inside with our consciousness. Complete oblivion suggests, in light of all of that once we're dead, that's the end of us. There's no afterlife. There's no soul to be spirited away to judgment and off to an eternity of heaven or hell. There's just a winking out of the consciousness and a return forever to that emptiness that we did not know before we were born. Not so scary. Quite absolute, though, it seems. Okay, next comes the Great Life Adventure. That's one or more experiences that we can have that kind of form the foundation and the cornerstone of our life. The story of who we are, help to develop who we are. And you can have multiple great life adventures throughout life. You can have mini ones on a weekend or in an afternoon. I recommend a great life adventure after college and before we settle down to a career, sometime between 25 and 30. Just go for it. Come back later, bruised, broke, sunburned. Lots of stories. And a character and identity all your own. It's tough to do both. It's tough to do the deep one and the surface one and get away with both. Some people can do it. Me not so much. I've done that, focused more on the deep one. Gives you lots of stories to tell. And there's a satisfaction of sorts in that. I just finished reading this weekend The Vanity of Human Desires. I think that's what it is, by Samuel Johnson. And in accord with that, I'm glad I focused mostly on the deep risk. Next is the season of philosophy, which is a time to memorialize and record along the way what we've learned, what's been important to us. And then after the season of philosophy comes the bullseye aim, a reminder that we shoot for the bullseye and the target, but we usually miss, sometimes altogether. Just keep that in. I'm just going to keep that in mind. Strive, but it's tough to hit that bullseye every time, or even sometimes. Next is the uphill climb, a reminder that life is an uphill trudge, that if we're not going anywhere, we're likely to, our feet have a way of settling in and sinking into the mud, setting down roots in a way. Watch out. It can be hard to extricate yourself later. Dare I say impossible. And then after the uphill climb comes arena and utility. Life is this arena. Think of it like a gladiatorial arena for the development of objectives and principles and the execution of these along the lines of better living. And the principles are the tools. They're like our weapons. If we're gladiators again, it's our mace and our sword and our shield and our helmet. And we fight to survive and live well, live a virtuous life, which is the sole aim of the objectives that are part of this creed. Arena and utility. The next comes, there's two left. Second to last is nothing is enough. A suggestion beyond temperance towards abstinence. More a suggestion that peace and happiness are not to be found in things, or not much, but instead to be found in what exists beyond the things, in the emptiness, in the empty purse, in the empty day, the opportunity of filling it with something of value. Last one. A principle of fun. A reminder to simply have a good time. Enjoy life while you can. In the moment of now, anticipating the days to come, and looking back on where we've been. All right, that's my good life creed. We did it. Now to plan for the day. It's a work day. It's a Monday. I didn't sleep so well. I didn't think about work so much, but I thought about it a little bit. I think I only have 2 meetings today. One meeting, proper meeting, and then a training class that I'm going to do. Looking forward to it. I also think I'm going to take Friday off. I'll talk to my boss. Should be a good day. Should be a good day. Okay. I'm ready for it. Thanks for joining me. Be safe, but not too safe. Take care.